What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 402 here today of #AskGSM for Wednesday, August 11, 2021. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week. If you haven't already done so after this video, of course, check out my exclusive interview with the Raw Women's Champion, Nikki Ash, from Monday, talking all about her becoming the Raw Women's Champion, her winning Money in the Bank, her upcoming SummerSlam title defense against Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair, both of whom I've actually interviewed here on the channel this summer alone. Rhea Ripley back in June, or Charlotte Flair back in June, Rhea Ripley last month. But it was Nikki Ash's turn this week on the channel, and she was great to chat with. Of course, as you guys probably know from listening to these #AskGSM videos and WrestleRant Radio or whatever, I am not a big fan at all of the whole superhero shtick and the whole Nikki Ash character. It's not for me. I think it's garbage, but Nikki Ash herself, or Nikki Cross, what have you, is an awesome individual. Could not have been nicer, really cool to chat with. So check it out right now here on the channel from Monday in audio form, and check it out in article form as well over on Bleacher Report. You're going to want to be sure to subscribe and like that video, comment, share, all that great stuff. And stay tuned for more exclusive interviews coming here to the channel heading into SummerSlam, including one that's already been confirmed coming up next week here on the channel. We had one actually go up today, not new, but it was from last year. The first one posted in audio form here on the channel, that being with now former WWE superstar Bronson Reed, former NXT North American champion. I chatted with him actually 1 year ago today, I believe. I think it was 1 year ago today. Could not have been cooler. Very nice guy. That interview went up 1 year ago, I think this week, going into NXT that night when he faced Damian Priest on the show. And in light of his recent release, and just because it was a year ago this week, I thought I would release the interview. So check that out if you haven't already as well. It's a 16-minute interview that went up on dailyddt.com a year ago. And Bronson Reed is another one. Could not have been cooler. I'm a big fan of his, and we'll get into his release a little bit later on in this video. And if you guys want to send in questions here to the show, you could do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM on Twitter. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop a question on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And be sure to drop a comment on this very video down below in the comment section. I'll be sure to include your question in next week's edition. Quick shout out to a friend of the show, Paulie. Great guy. He's been listening, watching on and off now for almost 7-8 years. I started the show 8 years ago. I think he's been around since either 2013, definitely 2014. Paulie's been around for a long time. We actually just recently reconnected. We've always been connected on Facebook, but he hasn't had a chance to submit any questions to the show in such a long time. But he did submit me a question via DM on Facebook that was just too long to include here today. But it was basically along the lines of, what if Triple H left WWE and he kind of started his own promotion, doing what he would be doing with NXT if it wasn't under the thumb of Vince McMahon and the rest of WWE and all this other stuff. It was really interesting, and he was like, oh, what if WWE got sold to Disney and all these other things? I 100% expect, maybe not 100%, but I do definitely expect at some point WWE to be sold in some capacity, whether it be probably not to Disney, more likely it would be NBC. But at the rate that they're going, with the money that they think they're saving by releasing all these talents from either, behind the scenes or main roster talents, big, small, high contracts, low contracts, NXT included, Performance Center recruits, they're definitely gearing up for something. That much is for certain. I don't know if it's going to be happening within the next year, but I've learned to realize that anything can happen in wrestling. No matter how unexpected or unlikely it might be, it could definitely happen. So I'm kind of prepared for that. But yeah, Paulie sent in a great question over DM on Facebook, and we kind of chatted about it briefly over there. So thanks to Paulie for sending in the question. I already kind of answered it. I already kind of gave my answer to it via DMs to him. But I wanted to thank him formally here on the show for sending in the question, as he's always been a big supporter of hashtag dating back many years. The first actual question for today's show comes from Noel from YouTube. Their question was, they got two of them. The first one being, do you think Adam Cole will stay with WWE or go somewhere else, given what happens when NXT call-ups come into the main roster? I don't know if I went into great detail about this last week here on the show. I'm pretty sure I did because it was timely a week ago when news broke via Fightful that Cole's contract is up in a few weeks and he might not re-sign. He has yet to sign a new contract offer or contract extension, whatever. I know I did talk about it in great length on WrestleRant Radio with RJ, so cheap plug for that. Episode went up last Thursday, new episode this Thursday. Might offer an update on the whole Adam Cole contract situation, especially coming off the news that WWE released all this talent. that might affect things, including his friend Bobby Fish. So whether that'll affect things or not, I imagine it could play a factor. Time will tell. But as far as Adam Cole is concerned, if I had to take a guess, gun to head, is he staying or leaving? I honestly think if you asked me 6 months ago, I would say, he's definitely staying. What reason would he have to leave? I know his girlfriend's in AEW, but we see a lot of cross-promotional couples. Peyton Royce was released, but it seemed like they were perfectly content, Shawn Spears and Peyton Royce, that is, and they were for years, being in different companies. Same with Jon Moxley and Renee Young. Renee Young left on her own. It wasn't like she was only there, like she left WWE because of Jon Moxley. Like, she left well after the fact. AJ left a little bit while after CM Punk left, but that wasn't a cross-promotional thing. That was a different situation. There's a lot of couples between the two companies, and there's not a lot of people saying, I'm going to leave because my significant other left. That doesn't really seem to happen a lot. Lana, same thing. Lana and Miro have worked for two different companies for about a year. Lana got cut a few months ago, but again, she didn't ask for her release as far as we know, whether it be at that point or prior to that. Like, she had to be released by the company. So now she could probably join her husband in AEW, but it wasn't like she asked out of her contract because Miro got fired a year ago from WWE. No, they probably would still continue to be in two different companies had she not gotten fired. So with Cole, I don't think that's really a factor, although it does help. I think the biggest thing to me is that Cole is not a dumb guy. To me, he screams a WWE guy. Like, he screams someone that WWE would want to use for, like, promotion and media. I mean, I myself have interviewed him twice in the last year. He's a major ambassador for NXT, and he's a great guy to do interviews with, really nice guy, great worker, great talker. To me, he screams star. The problem, that in the eyes of Vince McMahon, he may not see Adam Cole as a star because he's not 6'5". He's no Duke Hudson. Rather, he's like 5'10". Like, I'm not 6 feet. I think I'm 5'11" or whatever. He's either the same height, if not shorter than me. And I know that because I've met the guy at least twice. And I could tell you from pictures that he is as tall, if not shorter than me. So the guy is definitely not 6 feet. They might tell you that he's 6 feet on WWE.com or one of those tail of the tape type things. He's not 6 feet. And that's not to say that everyone under 6 feet is going to be a failure on the main roster. But I just don't have faith with this company. It feels like with every year that passes, I have less and less faith with what they do with these NXT call-ups. I mean, in the last year alone, you look no further than Karrion Kross and Keith Lee. Two great athletes. I think Keith Lee is more dynamic and more exciting to watch than Karrion Kross. That's just because of their respective in-ring styles. But neither of those guys have been immune to the WWE bad booking. It's not like, let's call up the big guys from NXT and give them immediate pushes because they are tall enough or they are big enough. No, I think Karrion Kross, Keith Lee, and even Bronson Reed are all stars. Karrion so far on the main roster, is he ruined? No, not technically, but he hasn't exactly gotten off to a strong start on the Raw roster. Keith Lee hasn't been buried by any means, but their usage and booking of him lately and even before he took time off was also questionable. Bronson Reed, they never even gave a fucking shot to. He's a guy that could be like the next Bam Bam Bigelow, if not bigger in terms of success in this company, because he can move around, he's great in the ring, he can talk, he's likable. And yet they fired him before they even gave him a shot. And he was one of those guys that was rumored to be on the way up to the main roster, along with Karrion Kross, probably on SmackDown. And they fired him before they even got to that point. If that's what's happening to the Bronson Reeds, the Bronson Reeds and the Karrion Krosses and the Keith Lees, what does that mean for Adam Cole? That is my biggest issue. I know, listen, I have been a big proponent in the past of, like, with Undisputed Era, for example, I've always said, should they break them up in NXT or call them up as a unit to the main roster? I've always said they should have gone to the main roster together. And it's a question of, well, would you rather end it while they're on top in NXT or, risk it on the main roster? They could be booked terribly and then they ruin it over there. I've always said give it a shot. With Cole, though, it's at a very interesting time. Cole on the main roster isn't as much of a problem as the fact is that his contract is coming up. It's do or die time right now. If his contract wasn't coming up for the next 5 years or 4 years or even until 2022 at some point, I would say, yeah, put him on the main roster, see what'll happen. He's done everything there is to do in NXT. He really should have moved up to the main roster at some point within the last year or so. Probably right after he lost the NXT Championship, if not right after TakeOver Stand and Deliver. But they kept him around. He's had some great matches. They're continuing the feud with him and Kyle O'Reilly, and that's fine. But again, if his contract was, up next year or in 2 years, I would be like, yeah, at this point, he can't be on NXT anymore. Just give it a shot. The problem is that his contract is up in mere weeks, reportedly, like right after SummerSlam. So if that's the case, then it's either he goes to the main roster, signs some, juicy contract. I don't know if it'd be $1 million or around. I don't think it'd be $1 million. It'd probably be a lot less than that. But even $500,000, I think, would be a lot more than whatever the hell he's making right now in NXT. It's either he does that, or leaves the company entirely. Like, that's really the only two choices. I mean, I guess he could stay in NXT, sign a new contract there. I really don't want to see that. I enjoy NXT, but again, he has done everything. Literally, there is everything there is to do in NXT. He has done it. He should not stay in NXT. He's got to go to the main roster or leave, and I think he should leave. And I'm not one of those people that'll tell you, everyone that leaves WWE either willingly or gets released should go to AEW. There's a lot of people that have been released this year I do not want to see in AEW. The whole Lana and Miro connection, I get it, but I really don't want to see Lana on TV anymore. I just don't think she's that good in the ring. I think she's terrible. They would put her in the ring if AEW signed her. As a manager for Miro, that's okay, I guess. Like, they work well together as a married couple. They have that actual chemistry, obviously. But, they don't need her with him. I think he's fine enough on his own. You look at, Buddy Murphy even. I feel like even if they signed him, I feel like he'd be lost in the shuffle. I feel like it would be cool to see him. But at the same time, it would be like, how far can you really go with this guy on your roster when you already have a lot of people that they're not doing enough with? I think it was imperative that they signed Aleister Black. I think it was imperative that they signed Andrade. Punk and Bryan are free. Why wouldn't you make a get for them or make a chase for those guys? And seemingly they've signed, which is great. But everyone else, Strowman, I would say absolutely not. That is a waste of a roster spot. He doesn't exactly fit the vibe of AEW. No thanks. A Tony Nese or an Arya Daivari. Daivari, I think, is terrible. I don't really think he's that good at all. He has gotten better, but he bores me to fucking tears. Tony Nese, I became a big fan of on 205 Live in recent years. Do I want to see him in AEW? No, I don't. I just feel like it's just not necessary. Even 2.0, the former Ever-Rise, they have enough tag teams as it is where I feel like as entertaining as they are, to sign them to full-time deals, I feel like they would get lost in the shuffle and never really be featured. I could be wrong. I would love to be wrong. But that being said, with all that being said, Adam Cole's a guy that you absolutely make a play for. And he's absolutely a guy that already has a connection with Tony Khan, given that his girlfriend works there. We've seen a lot of photos and videos over the years of Cole at their New Year's Eve parties and, communicating with people that are on the roster, and probably Tony Khan himself taking pictures with these people, going to their parties and whatever, like I said. So he already has that built-in connection, as did a lot of the other people who came in AEW this year. Christian Cage already previously knew Tony Khan from meeting him many years ago, and that was what kind of set the stage for Christian to go to AEW over WWE. Adam Cole, I feel like if he were to leave WWE, it would be a slam dunk that he'd go to AEW. And I feel like given his friendship with the people there and the history that he has with the people there from Bullet Club and whatnot, that it just makes perfect sense for him to go to AEW. So do I think he'll leave? Again, gun to head. I do, because I feel like if he was going to re-sign, he would have re-signed by now. There is a very good chance that he stays. But I feel like with every passing day that he doesn't re-sign, or that we haven't heard talk of him signing a new contract, and with all this shit that's happening with the releases and the talk of a new direction for NXT, that doesn't exactly bode well for a guy like Adam Cole. So if I'm Adam Cole, I'm getting the fuck out of there. And I really want to see people. I was, stoked when he went to NXT and WWE 4 years ago. I thought, perfect. This guy belongs in WWE. But the main roster, even since 2017, has changed dramatically in terms of how they book people, how they perceive certain people, the call-up specifically. I feel like if he was called up 4 years ago, he would have done a lot better for himself at that point than he would now. Because they literally have no stars, and they don't really have a great track record in recent years of calling up people from NXT and really booking them as big of a star, to be as big of a star as they probably should be. I don't really have any faith at all that Cole would be this top star that we all want him to be on Raw and SmackDown. Ideally, yes, you call the guy up. He's a main event player on Raw and SmackDown. I don't even think he'd be in the main event. I honestly really don't. I just think they would call him up, And if anything, he'd be the next contender of the month for Apollo Crews or for Damian Priest if he were to win the United States Championship at SummerSlam. He'd be a mid-card guy, probably on SmackDown, and that would be it. Like, I just don't think, or maybe they would push him for a month, like the whole Keith Lee push, remember, where they had him beat Randy Orton in pay-per-view in 5 minutes, and then it was literally nothing after that. He would go to SmackDown, beat Big E in 5 minutes on the main roster at a pay-per-view. He would beat Seth Rollins in a big pay-per-view match, and then it would be all downhill from there. At this point, I would really just rather he leave, because I just don't think that there's any real faith or any real reason to believe that he would be as successful as he should be on the main roster, given the current landscape of WWE. That was a hefty answer, but it was a loaded question with the whole Adam Cole stuff. I'm a big fan of his. I want to see him do well, and I just don't want to see him stay and flounder. That's really the biggest thing. No L, second question from YouTube. Who would you say, or rather would you say, that Bret Hart is Mr. SummerSlam? I would. I think RJ and I had a conversation about a year ago on WrestleRant Radio, and I'm sure I've discussed this many times before here on this show and elsewhere, about who is Mr. SummerSlam. I think we made the case that Randy Orton is Mr. SummerSlam, but Bret Hart is the obvious answer. For whatever reason, he escaped my mind when we were talking about that conversation last year, whether it be Orton or Brock. Brock is another guy I would say is in that conversation for Mr. SummerSlam. For Brock Lesnar alone, he had that great match with The Rock in 2002 where he won the Undisputed Championship. He had a great match with Kurt Angle in 2003 where he lost to Kurt Angle, lost the WWE Championship on that show, I believe. Or maybe Angle was already champion and Angle retained. I think that's what it was. But they had a great match on that show. When he came back in 2012, had a decent match with Triple H at SummerSlam 2012. 2013, he and Punk fucking tore down the place. That was an amazing match, one of my favorite matches as a fan. 2014, he had that squash over John Cena that was amazingly well booked. 2015, he had that, what I thought was a better than expected match with The Undertaker, far better than the WrestleMania 30 match, did Brock. 2016, the match with Orton was disappointing. 2017, the Fatal 4-Way for the Universal Championship was fun. Not an all-time classic, but it was a fun match. 2018, the match with Roman was fine. The 2019 match with Rollins was pretty good, and then that was his last SummerSlam match to date. With Orton, there's a lot more SummerSlams there, but he's had some great SummerSlam matches and moments. I thought the Drew match last year was really good. He had a great match. Let's see here. I know he faced Hogan at SummerSlam 06. I remember that. 05, he beat Taker, which was a good match. Cena he faced in 09. 2010 he faced Sheamus, kind of forgettable matches. 2007 he faced Cena as well. 2011 the Christian match was great. Orton and Christian at SummerSlam 2011 was a fantastic match. Wasn't at SummerSlam 2012. He cashed in Money in the Bank in 2013 and turned heel, which was a great moment. 2014 he faced Roman and lost. 2015, who did he face? Rusev? Who the fuck was Sheamus? I mean, he kind of fell down there for a couple of years in like the mid-2010s. 2016, he faced Brock in the main event and lost, got crushed. 2017, he faced Rusev. So, yeah, I don't think Orton is Mr. SummerSlam. I think it has to be Bret Hart. I mean, Bret Hart didn't have as many matches at SummerSlam as Orton or maybe even Brock. But look at his resume alone. I mean, there are at least 5 or 6 matches that you can point to as being some of the greatest SummerSlam matches of all time, and they came from Bret Hart. The match with Taker comes to mind from SummerSlam 1997. Fantastic match there for the WWE title that he won. The British Bulldog, of course, headlining for the Intercontinental Championship at Wembley Stadium in 1992. Fantastic match. I love the Owen Hart match specifically. That's my favorite match of his at SummerSlam from SummerSlam 94, the cage match that a lot of people forget about because the WrestleMania match is more memorable. But the cage match for the championship between those two was fantastic. All the Hart Foundation matches that he had of the show, at least 2 or 3 of them, multiple of them, a few of them being with Demolition, which were all great matches. And then, of course, the Intercontinental Championship Mr. Perfect match from SummerSlam, what would that have been, 91? I think he was 91, if I'm not mistaken. Because it was probably before he became WWE Champion. Maybe 93. No, I think 93 he faced like Jerry Lawler or something, but Isaac Yankem wasn't exactly a great match. He was a part of the Team Nexus versus Team WWE match at SummerSlam 2010, which was complete garbage for the most part. I mean, the match itself was fine, but his involvement wasn't exactly great because I'm shocked he was even cleared to compete at that point. But yeah, Bret Hart has had an amazing SummerSlam resume with those matches alone. He is undoubtedly, to me, even with Orton and Brock having some great matches in their own right and a lot of matches at the event, It's got to be. I mean, even John Cena's probably in that conversation. But that nomination, that candidate, that title has got to go to Bret Hart. But real quickly with John Cena, look at the matches that he's had at SummerSlam over the years. The Jericho match in 05, good match. I believe he faced Booker T at SummerSlam 04, good match. 06 was Edge, good match there. In his own hometown, he got booed and Edge won, which was funny. I've seen that match multiple times. It's a good match. 07 and 09, he faced Orton. 08, I loved his match with Batista. He lost that one, but it was a really good match. 2010, the whole aforementioned Nexus WWE shit. Ugh. But from that point forward, he had some fucking bangers at SummerSlam. 2011, him and Punk, great match. 2012, him, Punk, and Big Show, triple threat, very good match. 2013, him and Bryan, one of the best matches of the year for the WWE Championship. 2014, got squashed by Brock. Wasn't exactly a great match from a technical standpoint, but it was perfectly booked. Great moment. 2015, the match with Rollins was the best match undoubtedly in the entire show. Title for title, fantastic stuff. 2016, one of the best matches I've ever seen live with Cena and AJ Styles. AJ winning clean, fantastic. 2017 is where he kind of started the falter. He faced Baron Corbin that year. Totally mid-card, forgettable match. And I think that was the last SummerSlam match that he had. I don't think he was at SummerSlam 2018 or 2019 or 2020. And he's facing Roman Reigns this year, which is obviously a high-profile match, and it's got to be main eventing the show. So Cena's in that conversation as well, but it's got to be Bret Hart for all the matches that I mentioned previously. Joe M. from YouTube, his question was, what are your thoughts on MSK, or at least the way they've been booked? To be perfectly honest, I can't stand them. They come off like annoying teenagers in their promos. They haven't been given too much development, and were just shot to the top immediately. And to me, they really don't feel special when we've got a tag team on Raw, now consisting of bigger guys with far more character, who can do what they can do in the ring, and Mansoor and Ali. So with MSK, I like MSK a lot. Honestly, they've been booked 10 times better than they ever were in Impact. I mean, they won the tag team titles in their first, 2 months in NXT, whereas in 2 or 3 years in Impact, they never won the tag team titles once. So with MSK, they're great in the ring. Have they had much development so far? The answer is no. They get a lot of promo time. I think they're good in that role. I like their promos a lot more in NXT, and I am biased because I've already followed their careers before. And I think their run so far has been a success by all accounts, because compared to how they were booked in Impact, it's just night and day. The promos are better. I hated the Treehouse, that 70 show style of promos they were doing in Impact. I just thought it was stupid and dumb, and I couldn't take them seriously. The promos in NXT are better. The thing is, at this point, though, and I was hoping people were saying this, and I was hoping they would go in this direction. They didn't. I was hoping they would go heel. You are right, though. I do agree. I think they won the tag titles too quickly. They won the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, really put them over as stars. That's great. But then they went on to win the tag team titles like immediately. I really feel like they would have benefited from being in chase mode longer and chasing grizzled young vets for the belts like throughout the summer, and then finally beating from them for the championships at like this takeover or maybe the last takeover or whatever. I feel like they just won the belts too soon, and that's why people are starting to turn on them in the building. I'm not very fond of the current NXT landscape fan-wise right now in that Capitol Wrestling Center. They just don't care for certain things that they probably should care for. They boo like random people like Kyle. I feel like MSK getting booed makes more sense than like Kyle O'Reilly getting booed, in my opinion. That just seems weird. MSK getting booed, it's just that they've been so aggressively booked to be winners. They've won every match they've had, which is good. It's gotten them over. But at the same time, they haven't had a whole lot of development. So you either take the belts off of them, which I think to Imperium, I just don't think they should lose to Imperium. I just don't think Imperium need another run with the titles. But you have Imperium, and they should probably beat Imperium, but they should lose the titles to another tandem, and then turn them heel. I really feel like they should have lost the belts to Ciampa and Thatcher, and then they could have turned heel right after that. Or maybe they beat them, but by turning heel, and that's what happens. Maybe that's still to come. I don't know. NXT is usually pretty good at kind of going in the direction with the fans. Look no further than Bo Dallas when he was the NXT champion, and he was kind of aggressively pushed as this babyface champion, and people fucking rejected him, and then they turned him heel, and he was this great heel. MSK were never heels from what I can remember in Impact as the Rascals, but I think they could do well in that role. And they have a lot of good tag teams in NXT, and I enjoy MSK. I don't hate them. I don't think they're annoying, but I do agree they need more development. And I feel like they're a prime example of a team that really should have been in chase mode longer. And I feel like that's where they went wrong with them. That's merely nitpicking, though. I mean, there's a lot of teams where they bring in and they don't do fucking jack shit with them. So honestly, it's refreshing that they have a team that they've brought in and have dedicated themselves to. Because there's a lot of teams or just a lot of people in general on the main roster in NXT that they bring in and aren't utilized at the level that they probably should be. That has yet to be the case with MSK, which is good. But maybe a heel turn would do them some good. I will say that. At Iwagu91 from Twitter, their first question was, do you think that the lumbar check is a cool finisher? P.S. Yesterday, that being on Monday, was my birthday. I share one with Alexa Bliss. Well, happy birthday at Iwagu91. Hope you had a great day. That is very cool that you share a birthday with Alexa Bliss. Do I think that the lumbar check is a cool finisher? I definitely do. I fucking love the move. I'm a big Cedric Alexander fan anyway, but that finisher looks great. He doesn't hit it all the time. He hits the, what's it called, the neuralizer. He used to use it as a setup move, but now he uses it as a finisher. But I feel like he and Ricochet got some advice or someone from someone in the back that was telling them, listen, you don't have to do this move all the time. Like, you can save your back, save yourself by not doing the move every fucking time you have a match. Like, save it for special occasions, which I agree with. Alexander doesn't have to win every match on main event, or Ricochet as well, with the 450 splash or the lumbar check. Keep it special. Don't ban it. But, do it on special occasions. Whenever he does win a match, because he lost to fucking Jackson Riker a week ago in main event. Fuck this company for that shit. That was so dumb. But yeah, I love the finisher, though. His second question, what were your thoughts on the on-screen romance between Mandy Rose and Otis? I mean, I talked about this a lot of the time, but I love the storyline. I think for all the faults this company has as far as creatively and people they should be doing more with, one thing I will give them all the credit in the world for, and I think they fired the woman who came up with the idea and who booked the storyline last year during the pandemic, just typical WWE, was that they nailed that story with Otis and Mandy. It was a natural story. They had history, and they were kind of building it up on social media anyway. WWE just never really acknowledged it and put it into storylines, but they played off of that. Otis was great in that role. Mandy Rose was great in that role. And Otis getting that kiss from Mandy at WrestleMania should have been this great moment. And it still was a good moment, but it would have been even cooler in front of like 50,000 people had COVID not happened at WrestleMania 36 in Tampa. But still, it was a great moment, and obviously, I don't think they've used either of them since. Otis won Money in the Bank for some weird reason, kind of fell off dramatically. He really was one of those guys that was hurt by there not being fans there. And then he lost the briefcase, he turned heel, which was weird. And now with Mandy, like, they turned her back heel. Or she's back heel now, but she was on Raw. They put her with Dana Brooke, which was fucking weird. She had momentum, and the whole feud with Sonya, and that went nowhere after she won. But yeah, I enjoyed the storyline. I thought it was very well crafted over the course of a couple of months. It was like the best part of SmackDown for a long time. Because that was before SmackDown really took a turnaround creatively, and it was a better show. As good of a show as it is now, for whatever that's worth. And SmackDown was still pretty shit in its first few months on Fox. That was the best thing going on the Blue Brand for a long time, was the Mandy Rose and Otis storyline. I thoroughly enjoyed that. That was one of the highlights for me of 2020 in WWE. His third question, would you like Gable Stevenson to join pro wrestling and become the first Olympic gold medalist besides Kurt Angle himself in the business? Ideally, yes, but the problem is that, again, it goes back to how they book these people. Chad Gable is also an Olympic athlete, but they have not done jack shit with him. Granted, he never won an Olympic gold medal, but he's a guy that's a legit Olympic athlete, and they have done diddly squat with this guy in the last 4 or 5 years. He's been in the main roster now, scarily enough, for 5 years. He's had a million different partners, and he's won various tag team titles, but he's never really been utilized on his own in any meaningful capacity. So, Stevenson has the momentum now, so if they were to sign him and really push him now, there could be something to that, but I just don't trust WWE creatively, or even NXT. I mean, if it were to go to NXT, then yeah, you'd be like a big deal type thing. But the problem is that once you leave NXT, and with all the rumors regarding NXT right now, I could see people wanting to work there because, it's WWE. I don't blame the talent for wanting to work there because, listen, you might think that you might be different. I totally understand that. Or you just want to see how it is for yourself. I totally get that. I totally understand that. The problem is that I just don't want to see this guy go there with all the potential that this guy probably has, go there and be fucking squandered. I would rather see him pop up, like, again, I hate to say, everyone should go to AEW, but if they didn't have as bloated of a roster as they do, Him going to AEW and being managed by like a Kurt Angle who was not under contract to WWE would be fucking sexy. I think that'd be awesome. Would they ever do that? Maybe. AEW is smart. WWE, they had the money to sign this guy, but creatively, this is the worst the company's ever been, at least in recent years. I don't trust that they would use this guy appropriately. Vince wouldn't get it. He wouldn't give a fuck. He'd be doing comedy within 6 weeks. He'd be fighting for the 24/7 title, and then they would fire him due to budget cuts in their own words. So, ideally, yes, I would like to see him go to WWE and do well. Would he actually, realistically speaking? I don't know. Like, this company has me thinking pessimistically right now. That's the right word to use. It's more realistic with this company because, yeah, ideally, I would like to think like an optimist and say, oh, yeah, him in WWE would be cool. Like, he can be the next gold medalist to win a WWE title. Ideally, yeah, but it's not 2000 anymore. It's fucking 2021, and we have a 76-year-old running this fucking company. I have no faith that they would use this guy as appropriately as they should, in my opinion. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine and from YouTube. Check out a show on YouTube, Real Honesty with John Ritland, a great guy, great dude. Check out a show. His first question was, so the dating segment's on NXT. Who is this for? He asks. You know, I'm going to be honest with you. John, you're probably going to click off the video when I say this. You might unsubscribe. You might unfollow me. You might say that you hate me. I totally get it if so. I enjoy the dating stuff. I know I might be in the minority. I did not watch NXT Live. I watched it after the fact, so I wasn't on Twitter. I didn't see people's reactions. People probably didn't like it. Personally, I enjoyed it for what it was. I like the dating segment stuff more than the Zoe Stark, Io Shirai segment last week at the sushi place or wherever they were. It might have been the same restaurant, or they just rebranded it. But I like the dating segments. I like the way stuff. I know you, John, fucking hate the way, and I totally get that. I enjoy the way. I like the whole Dexter Lumis, Indy Hartwell storyline. It feels like something that you would see in the main roster, yes. But NXT doesn't have enough storylines like this. Not to say that they should. There's a reason for that. But I don't know. As far as sports entertainment goes, I thought this was well done. I enjoyed the segments. I thought Johnny and Candice and Indy and Dexter all played their roles well. And I thought they were funny to a certain extent. Did they have me on the floor dying of laughter? No, but I enjoyed them for what they were. But again, you saying that they were shit or you not liking them, or I totally get that. I'm not saying, oh, well, you're not a real wrestling fan if you didn't like it. Like, I totally get it. My own personal taste, because I like all the people in that segment for the most part. I like the way more than I do Dexter, but I think Dexter is fine. I enjoyed them. I enjoyed the segments, but if other people thought they were shit, I totally get it. His second question, not really a question, but he just said, 13 releases on Friday and a computer-generated doll blinking on Monday. I don't get this company sometimes. Yeah, what the fuck was up with that? So we saw Lily on Raw this week. She was like propped up in the corner. The weird thing about this is that we have fans in the building now. I would love to know, and maybe it's a simple explanation, but I would love to know that someone that was there, how they did that. Clearly someone put Lily up on the turnbuckle, like in between shots from what we saw on TV. Was it a camera guy? Was it dude drop? Like, how did they turn off the lights? And like, how did that happen? How did the doll move from the fucking ring apron to the top of the turnbuckle? Someone obviously moved it, but how did they do it so it didn't look dumb in front of the fans in attendance? I mean, it was stupid anyway. I was that baffled, man. That whole thing is garbage. I don't even mind the Eva Marie Doudrop stuff. I've enjoyed what I've seen from them. Alexa Bliss I thought was supposed to be a heel, so her feuding with them is just weird. I don't know. I just think the whole Lily shit is just garbage. It's like the Fiend stuff on crack, and that's not a good thing. It's just not being done well at all. I think Alexa Bliss plays her character very well. The whole Lily shit is garbage. It is garbage. And yes, to do that 3 days after 13 releases, and it's not even the fact that they fire people, but it's the fact that they fire a guy like Bronson Reed, and then you watch their flagship show, you would think, oh man, they must have so much talent that they're doing so much with that they can't afford to have Bronson Reed around. But no, then you watch Raw on Monday, and Alexa Bliss is using a fucking computer-generated doll. It's like, come on, dude. What the fuck? He probably got lucky, and now he's going to be happy ultimately in the long run that he's not working there anymore, but he should be happy that Bronson Reed did not get called up, and rather is free to go wherever he wants without even having to ask for his release. Now doesn't have to be subjected to being booked like the fucking Funkasaurus 2.0. Credit to RJ for saying that, because he was the one who feared that, and now we won't have to deal with that because he's not even there anymore. So maybe it's a blessing in disguise. At E13A, their first question was from Twitter. With all the changes apparently coming to NXT, do you think there will be also changes to NXT UK? I don't. Quite frankly, I'm of the belief they don't even remember that NXT UK exists. Because they don't film it in the States. They haven't done a takeover in forever. They do the weekly show that they tape out of BT Sports Studios, or whatever it's called, in England. Beyond that, though, there is no presence of NXT UK here in the States aside from the promotion for Walter and Ilya at TakeOver 36. If that's what reminds Vince that they are still on the payroll, that NXT UK still exists, then that's not good. I enjoy NXT UK on the whole. I know I'm in the minority there. I enjoy the show usually. They need fans back, most definitely. I don't know what the status is over there as far as the COVID protocols are concerned. They need fans back. But that's the thing. I feel like if they remembered that NXT UK was a thing, then they would have gutted the entire roster, if not just gotten rid of it altogether. It is a completely pointless brand in the long term of things. They do not need NXT UK. I love Walter and a lot of the people they have there, but the brand itself is completely pointless. They try to capitalize on the whole UK wrestling boom. They fucking gutted the entire scene, and now there's really nothing left for the most part from the UK scene and the wrestling UK scene over in Europe and whatever. So if they knew it was still up and running, they probably would shut it down. I just feel like they don't even remember. Because what is so crucial about keeping Olive Carter under contract, but you're cutting Bronson Reed? I can't imagine Bronson Reed's contract. He's making that much more than anyone else over in NXT UK. That's my question. Do I think there will be changes, though? No, I don't. I feel like if they haven't cut really anyone so far from NXT UK, the only people they cut last year were the people that were called out in the Speaking Out movement, that being Ligero and Travis Banks. I mean, the Coffey brothers were called out too, and Wolfgang, and nothing really came of that, which was weird. Maybe just because Ligero and Banks were more expendable, that's why they were fired, I don't know. But beyond that, no one else, I don't think, has been let go from NXT UK, so NXT seems to be the issue that Vince McMahon has because they lost AEW, no one else. 205 Live, too, they remember that 205 Live existed because they tape it after NXT. They gutted the entire roster. They don't give a fuck about 205 Live. So if they haven't even touched NXT UK yet, I don't think that's changing at all. Whether that be a good thing or a bad thing, I don't think it's changing from whatever it is right now. His second question, do you think Christian will or should become AEW champion? Good question. I don't think he will. Do I think he should? You know, the problem is this. I'm a big Christian guy. I love Christian, always have been a Christian fan. You guys know this. I've spoken very highly of Christian for years now. Do I think he needs to be AEW champion? I really don't. The issue now is that they have such a big roster that they don't really need to be putting the championship on a guy like Christian. When he came into TNA 15 years ago and they put the championship on him, he was, 1, 15 years younger, and 2, they didn't have the star power that they would later have in like the late 2000s and stuff. They still put the belt on people that came in on day one, like Alberto fucking Del Rio in 2017, which was dumb, instead of putting it like on Eli Drake sooner than they did. But still, you know, they put the belt on Christian and it worked out because he was 15 years younger. The guy at this point, you may not know this because he works a lot younger. Like, he wrestles a younger style and he looks a lot better in the ring than Chris Jericho does, who's only a couple of years older than Christian. But Christian Cage is like 47 years old. I know they put the belt on Jericho when he was almost 50. But Jericho is, 1, a bigger name. 2, he was the right choice for when they put the belt on him. For the first ever AEW champion, he had momentum. AEW has 10 times the bigger roster now than it did back in August of 2019. If Christian joined at that point and they didn't have the roster that they do now, then I would say, I don't know if I would want to see Christian beating Chris Jericho for the title, but he would have a better shot. At this point, even the ex-WWE people I would rather see have the championship because they have a lot more to offer in that role than Christian does. Christian's not beating Omega for that championship, first of all. And if they wait any longer, which they will, first of all, he should not be beating the one, or second of all, rather, because they already said the other thing. He should not be the one to take the belt off of Omega when that should clearly be Page, at whatever point that happens, for starters. Third of all, in addition to everything I just said, they would really have to build up this story of like, oh, people really want to see him win. I don't get the sense right now among AEW fans, or really anyone, that anyone wants to see Christian win the championship. He can go for the title, But at this stage of his career, the guy is very good still. He doesn't need to be world champion. If he does, no more for than a month or something. He got his big moment 10 years ago. They should have booked him better when WWE had the chance, when he was still in his prime, and he was in his late 30s. Even at that point, he should have held the belt longer back in 2011. It's 2021. He should not be winning the championship and holding it for any substantial period of time. If the story was right and it made sense to do so when he's about to retire, maybe, then maybe. But at this point, I would rather see the belt around the waist of Darby Allin, Adam Page, MJF, even a Malachi Black. I don't know about a Miro, but Andrade, maybe, people like that before Christian. I just don't think at this point he's going to be winning the world title, but the thing is, he doesn't need to. I think he could be a very good TNT champion. I think people can get behind that. I think that'd be a great role for him. World champion, I don't think it's necessary. I feel like it'd get AEW some backlash at this point, so I don't know if I would go in that direction. I don't think they should do that. As much as I love the guy. His third question, do you think Big E will be at SummerSlam? On that topic, do you think WWE will protect him as Mr. Money in the Bank, assuming he doesn't just cash in anytime soon? I'm getting the sense that he's cashing in at SummerSlam. We've seen that multiple times already. They did it in 2011. They did it in 2013. They may have done it some other time. I feel like he'll just cash in at SummerSlam because, I really want to see them drag this out and wait until WrestleMania. They have the patience of a fucking goldfish. Like, they have the memory of a goldfish where they're not going to think that far ahead. They don't have the patience to do that. So they're going to have him cash it in soon, win, lose, or draw. That's what's going to happen. So I feel like he'll be at SummerSlam, not wrestling a match, because, what feud can you really give to Big E to do at SummerSlam on such short notice? They have 2 SmackDowns left. Even Apollo Crews is busy, not that I would want to see him revisit that feud right now. I feel like he'll pop up in a backstage segment, either confronting Roman or just Paul Heyman again, and that'll be it. He could cash in at SummerSlam against one of the champions, regardless of who wins either top title at the pay-per-view, whether it be Lashley, Goldberg, Reigns, or Cena. I could totally see that happening. It's very possible, honestly. Do I want to see it happen at that point? No. But if they did, I'd be very happy for him because I think Big E is great. And whenever he does cash in, hopefully a little bit later on, and not right now, I think it should be successfully, and he should be champion because the guy deserves it, and the guy is great. So I do think he'll be at SummerSlam, if only in a backstage segment, but not in an actual match unless he's cashing in, which again, like I said, is possible. At noob_n_code 1991, their first question, what are your thoughts on the NXT releases over the weekend? Or are we getting some form of reboot for NXT? I've talked about this before. I thought the releases were just ridiculous as far as there were a lot of people there that were very good. When you let go of Kona Reeves, who gives a fuck? The guy had no future. He's been there for years. And I think I saw Booker T talking about this. But NXT really should have more of a protocol in place, and maybe they do, but they just don't really reinforce it. If someone is in NXT for more than 2 or 3 years, then it's like, alright, what is the fucking end game here? Because at the end of the day, it is a third brand to an extent, maybe not anymore, but at the end of the day, it's still developmental. You have to create stars. If you want to have said stars on your show, like a Gargano or a Ciampa or a Cole, fine, although I do think a lot of those guys would benefit from going somewhere else, whether it be another company or a Raw or a SmackDown, even though the creative on those shows is shit. That's fine. If it's supposed to be a third brand, which they tout it as, which I don't think it is anymore, if it ever was to begin with, whatever. But at the same time, though, when you have people under contract for 6 years that aren't a top person, like Aaliyah was not a top star at all. She was supposed to be there because she was a developmental, prospect. If she doesn't improve in 5 or 6 years, you fucking cut bait. She's terrible, just move on. But instead, they moved her up to Raw, and I'm pretty sure she beat Dakota Kai in main event this week. Spoiler for the 5 people that watch main event, along with myself. Pretty sure she beat Dakota Kai in main event. What a fucking joke. What a joke. But she's one of those guys, or girls rather, and I'm like, why is she, like Jessie Camille, she's been there for years. Are you going to do something with her? Or are you just going to cut bait? Free her roster spot up for someone else. As nice as she might be. If they're not going to do anything with her and she's not progressing, get rid of her. But if they are actually progressing, then move them on to the next step. Push them on NXT or move them to the main roster or whatever. That's how I think NXT should be. None of this shit where people are on the roster for 5 years and they're not doing shit. Like, Angelo Dawkins got lucky that Profits came around when they did, because he was there for years. Like 8 or 9 years before he finally got called up. And thank God, because on his own, the guy would be dead in the water. He would be the Tucker of the Street Profits, and then he would just get fired. So for his sake, I mean, Montez Ford will be a single star at some point. For his sake, hopefully they drag this shit out and they milk it for everything it's worth before they break him up, because once they do, which it's happening at some point, you got to know it's coming, he's dead in the water. But yeah, I just think with a lot of those releases, like a Mercedes Martinez, she had value. Whether it be there or on the main roster, she's great. She just showed up a year or two ago. I mean, come on. That I thought was dumb. You just signed Jake Atlas and Ari Sterling. Why are you already firing them? If you didn't think you can make money with them too, then why did you fucking hire them in the first place? That's another question. I thought that was dumb. Bobby Fish had value in another role there. They should have never broke up Undisputed Era. Bronson Reed was easily the worst decision of them all. The fact that they let him go. The guy has so much potential. He moves around a lot better than most guys his size. He's a great wrestler. He can connect with the crowd. That was fucking dumb, especially when he was on his way to the main roster. And if not, just let him stay in NXT and be NXT champion. Him and Samoa Joe would have been sexy as fuck. I mean, what the fuck, man? That was just stupid. It was just fucking dumb that they would let that guy go. Stupid. Are we getting a reboot of NXT? Maybe not a hard reboot like the reboot that they had in 2012 when it went from being the competition show, NXT Redemption or whatever it was called at that point, to then becoming the NXT that we know and love today. It might not be that, per se, like that hard of a reboot, but I could see them slowly but surely starting to phase out the smaller guys. And so far as we know, that is just an idea. Until we actually see it acted upon on this show, it's just an idea that they want to focus on people under 30. Because I read that, and then come 3 months from now, they hire like another 42-year-old or a 36-year-old or whatever. I mean, it happens all the time. We hear these edicts all the time for the main roster. Oh, no more of this, no more of that. And then Vince changes his mind, and then it's right back to what it was before. I mean, it happens all the fucking time. So, I hope it doesn't really change. I mean, I enjoy the current NXT product. It needs improvement. But the only changes I really want to see for NXT are getting back in front of a fucking audience. Like, doing shit out of the CWC makes them look Bush League, to be honest with you. And for a WWE property, that's embarrassing compared to AEW, which is a startup, essentially. So, at any rate, I hope we're not getting a hard reboot and it's going back to what it was before Triple H took over, because that would be a massive fucking mistake. But with all of what we're hearing so far, it doesn't look good. Seeing is believing, but all the rumors and reports that we've read and heard so far do not look promising at all for the future of NXT. Noob's second question, with Marvel's What If show premiering this week, or actually today as I speak, what's your wrestling what if? For me, what if Asuka turns on Charlotte instead of Becky Lynch? I don't really think that would have changed much. If Asuka was in the spot of Becky Lynch, are you saying that Asuka would have already gone over like the same way that Becky did? I don't think so. Asuka earlier that year lost her undefeated streak to Charlotte, which was fucking dumb in and of itself. Asuka ended up turning heel soon after anyway with the Kabuki Warriors. That didn't really change anything. The Becky Lynch push happened because Becky Lynch had been overlooked for so long. She never got a second title run after she lost it back in 2016. She was on a winning streak, and then Charlotte took that moment away from her. Asuka was already over. Becky was over, but like people were really starting to get behind her, and they took that moment away from her. So I don't really think it would have been the same thing for Asuka as it was with Becky if Asuka was in that spot. I think, obviously, you're like obsessed with Asuka. You ask about her every week. I don't think anything really would have changed with Asuka. She still would have been as over then as she was. Nothing really would have changed. And why would I want to see Asuka and Charlotte fucking again? They already had the match at WrestleMania. Charlotte beat her. Who cares? Becky being in that spot made way more sense. They really should have turned Charlotte Flair heel. They really should have turned Charlotte heel, which is what people were hoping for. But they turned Becky Lynch heel, and then she was right back to being a babyface a couple months later anyway, so it's not like it even really mattered anyway. But as far as my what ifs, I mean, there's a lot of them. What if the Montreal Screwjob didn't happen? What if the NWO didn't happen? What if that Mick Foley, what if the tides didn't turn and WWE went out of business? Those are probably the biggest what ifs, you know. For me personally as a fan, what if they actually dragged out the Punk storyline in 2011 and he didn't return 8 days later? What would have happened? Would they have brought Punk back for a Survivor Series? For the Rumble, maybe? Couldn't do it at WrestleMania. On the bill was already Punk and Rock, or Rock and Cena, rather, the first one. I mean, that would be perfect to do Cena and Punk 2 at that show, but they already had Rock and Cena on the bill, so that wasn't going to happen. But what would have happened? How much fun could you have had with that storyline had they not fucked it up and brought him back 8 days later? I didn't mind at the time because I love CM Punk, and I was like, oh, great, he's back, he's got the new theme, whatever. In retrospect, though, and also, what if he didn't lose to Triple H? That's another thing. What if he didn't quit the company overall? What if he didn't quit in 2014? What would happen with the Yes Movement? Would Daniel Bryan still have faced Sheamus on the pre-show? Probably. Or not on the pre-show, the fucking undercard of that show, WrestleMania 30? Probably. A lot of what-ifs with Punk there. I always had another one, too. What if William Regal never got suspended in 2008? When he was the Raw GM, he just won King of the Ring. My biggest what-if was, what if he doesn't get suspended? Do they have him win the WWE title? I don't think they would have. That was only rumors of, like, that he was going to win a championship, and then he fucked it up for himself. I don't know if they would have actually put the belt on him, because Triple H was the champion at that point. I don't see William Regal beating Triple H, of all people. Could they have moved him to SmackDown and gave him the world title? Maybe. But I am very curious if it still would have ended the same way that it did for Regal, because he ended up winning the IC title months later when he came back from the suspension, and he still had some momentum. But he got suspended and he was off TV immediately after being a focal point of the show for months. And they had to cut it short because he fucked up and got himself suspended after doing drugs or whatever it was. That's always been my biggest what if. And another one too. What if Ken Kennedy actually cashed in the Money in the Bank briefcase in 2007 successfully? He didn't because they thought he got injured and they thought he would be out for a while. Turns out he wasn't, and he didn't have to need surgery, so he stuck around, but they gave the contract before they even found that out to Edge, who cashed in on Taker instead, who was on his way out, or not on his way out, but he got hurt and he needed to leave. So I'm very curious what would have happened there with Kennedy. Would he have won the championship? Would they have had him lose? Would he be a top guy? Would he have held the title for a couple of months? He gets de-pushed, and then he's gone anyway in a few years? Or do they actually put the belt on him, dedicate to his push, make him a top star, and then he doesn't actually leave the company in 2009 or get fired in 2009 or whatever it was? So very curious as to how that would have panned out. Last question for the episode here today. Will we see more releases now that it's becoming a normal thing moving forward? We absolutely will. It's already been confirmed by Alex Zarian of the Matman Pro Wrestling Podcast. He's been a pretty good source as far as this stuff is concerned. Sean Ross Sapp, PW Insider, Mike Johnson have all said, mostly Andrew Zarian has confirmed, we are getting more releases. He said that after the June 2nd cuts that we got more releases 3 weeks later. We got the Bray Wyatt firing. We got a bunch on Friday. It's not going to stop. We're going to get more cuts. It's going to happen. I hate to say it, but it's just inevitable at this point. They just want to continue to cut bait, probably for a potential sale, if not just to tighten up funds that they don't really need when they're already making a shit ton of money. Is cutting Desmond Troy, who has potential from your roster, is that really going to break the bank by keeping him around? I don't think so. There's something else going on here that we're just not aware of. I guarantee it. It's very fishy, the whole thing. I mean, what company fires so many performers? I know they've hoarded talent for so long, but some of these people actually had potential and they were doing shit with. That's the part that doesn't make any sense. If you're firing fucking Veer and Shanky, I don't think anyone would, bat an eyelash or shed a tear about that. But when you're firing people that you're about to call up, like a Bronson Reed who has potential, that is very concerning. Very concerning and very frustrating and very confusing. Nonetheless, though, I absolutely expect it to become a normal thing. We shouldn't be surprised by more releases coming, but we know that we will be. When we see that big name on the next headline and the next round of cuts that we're getting at some point in the next month or two, we should say that we won't be surprised, but we absolutely, we should say that, I'll be surprised about this, but at the same time, we won't be. We shouldn't be, because we should see this shit coming at this point, because that's just the current business model of WWE, which is just awful, but we'll see what the future has in store. I don't think it's anything positive, personally, because I think it's not the fact they're letting people go. They're letting the wrong people go. And the way they're doing it is shitty, too. That's the problem. And they can't, the whole excuse, budget cuts. What's the whole John Laurinaitis line from that CM Punk promo 10 years ago? Oh, it's budget cuts, kid. Best of luck in your future endeavors. That's my best John Laurinaitis, but I don't think it's budget cuts. That's obviously bullshit. So we'll see what happens moving forward. Thank you guys for checking out the show this week, episode 402 for Wednesday, August 11, 2021. Who was it? At noob_n_co 1991 mentioned earlier, the What If show premieres today on Disney+. It's already out now. I haven't watched it yet. I'll be watching it later. Stay tuned for very likely our review of the show this Friday here on the channel. What If Season 1, Episode 1, the series premiere. Myself, Phil, Doc, Chris Mueller, breaking it down here on the channel, so check that out. My Nikki Ash interview went up on Monday, audio form, check it out, great stuff there. I had my Bronson Reed interview go up from a year ago this week. I put that up this morning. Yesterday, we had a Suicide Squad review. I reviewed Raw Talk. Tomorrow, WrestleRant radio excerpts. We got another interview going up early next week. I'll be breaking down the Broken Skull Sessions episode with Bobby Lashley when that goes up on Sunday. So there's a lot to look forward to. A lot of exciting stuff coming up that you guys are just not going to want to miss. So if you haven't already, please done so. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe here to the channel. Do not miss a video. Hit the bell button to be notified every time a new video goes up. I appreciate your guys' support. If you want to send in a question here to this show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And be sure to include your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Have an awesome one, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.